What is going on, YouTube? So check it out, we're on the lot again today, and I ended up picking up another project. I know I should probably finish Old Reliable. She's still sitting in my garage. She only has a couple things left on her, but she will be done soon. We'll get a video on her here pretty soon. But I picked up another project, guys, and this one I just can't wait for. It's a 2005 Honda Ruckus. So I've actually had this thing since last year. I've been driving it. I drove it through the winter, actually, through most of the winter until it snowed, and I've been driving it since the season started again right now. So she runs and drives pretty good. I mean, it only goes about 35 with me on it. I'm a big guy, so it doesn't go much faster than that. So, and just recently she kind of started having a hard time starting. So here we'll give you guys kind of a little quick, you know, fire up. But and of course she fires right up the first time. Oh no, there goes. You see, so, and then she kind of wants to die. So yeah, see, so she died. So she runs good, but you know, it takes a little while to get her warmed up. I think it's got 6,000 miles on it, or 8,300. So I don't know if you guys can quite see that, but I mean, it probably just needs a valve adjustment and a good tune up, clean the carburetor again, and she'd probably be good to go for this year. But I've been slowly gathering parts for a Gy6 swap, so that's what we're going to be doing today, guys. So I got the Gy6 swap. I'm just going to do it my way. A lot of people spend a lot of money on them and get them all real nice and, you know, pretty, but I'm kind of doing it on a half budget. I mean, I did buy some expensive parts, but I'm not going to go ahead and buy the wiring harness and all that other stuff. I'm going to see what I can get away with what my bike already has, and we're going to go from there. So let's get to it, guys. I'm going to start by probably pulling off this seat frame, pulling out the engine, and then I actually got a whole nother donut scooter in the back of that van there and all my other parts. So maybe we'll go over the parts real quick, but let's get started. Okay, so just kind of a sneak peek at what we're going to be doing. This is all the parts. Like I said, they're just tossed in the back of the van for right now. But we got our front wheel adapter. We have our disc brake adapter for the front wheel. We have our lowered seat frame. We have the rear wheel adapter, and that's a drum. We have our wheels. So that's a 12x8, I think, with the 130/70 on there. And this one's a 12x4. So we have our Yoshimura exhaust pipe back there, and this is our whole donor scooter. So, and it's got the Gy6, it's got the 150cc engine on that. And what I'm gonna end up doing is just pulling this whole engine with the whole wire harness. I'm just gonna use the wire harness from this. I decided not to buy the wire harness because some of them are $300-400, and I just don't think it's worth it. I mean, if something's gonna go wrong with it, I'm pretty good at electrical. I can just fix it or make it better than it was before. So we also have the lowering shocks for the front. These are the low boy shocks, and I also have a low boy rear shock somewhere. I think it's probably inside of this box, and that's our front disc conversion in there. So we got our brake lines, our discs, our caliper, all that good stuff in there. So like I said, it is kind of a budget build because I bought some of the, you know, more basic lower end stuff. It's not the super expensive stuff, but it still will be a really nice build once I'm done building it. And I'm pretty excited to ride this thing once it's all getting up and going. So like I said earlier, with that stock engine on there, I go about 35. I'm hoping once I get this Gy6 150 in there, we're probably going to be able to do about 55-60. Whew, nice bike. So anyways, guys, yeah, let's get started taking this thing apart, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we got everything out of the back of the van. We got all our parts in a pile. We got our Ruckus, and we got our donor scooter. So this thing's in pretty rough shape, but it fires right up. So I'm gonna go ahead and start tearing this thing all apart. I really don't want to spend too much time on this thing. I'm just literally gonna tear the seat off, tear all the plastics off, get all the wiring harness with the complete engine out of there. So once we get all that off, we're gonna go ahead and start putting everything on the Ruckus, and we'll go more into detail with that. So put you guys on a quick time lapse, and we'll do that. Okay, so just as easy as that, we got that engine out of there. So I am going to reuse this old wire harness. Hopefully none of these wires are too old or cracked or anything like that. I think it's going to work. But now I'm just going to go ahead and take off this wheel, this exhaust, take off these old shocks, and we got all new parts over there. So let's go ahead and get started on that, and we'll keep on going. Okay, so we got our rear hub here from Dorby Works. I think this one I got, but this is actually what goes into your wheel here. So if you can see, it's actually backwards right now, but so you can see it fits right in there. So this is going to hold our wheel on. So that's our rear hub, and it's for the drum setup. But when you get a stock Gy6, you're going to have a long axle in there. So you can see this thing's really long, and if you put your hub on there, it sticks out way too much. See, so you got this big space. So either people put spacers in there and run that, but I went ahead and bought the short axle, so that's going to be our next step. So let me go get the short axle. I think it's somewhere over here in these parts. Here we go. There it is. So we're going to go ahead and swap out from our long axle to our short axle, and that will fix our problem with that long axle sticking out of there. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to start by taking off this this CVT cover. So it's just got 8mm bolts all the way around. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll get right back to it. Okay guys, so hopefully you can see this. We ended up taking off the cover. It was a little bit of a pain to get on because the gasket was pretty stuck, but we also took off our clutch and our variator. They just have one nut each. You just impact them right off, and then the whole thing slides off in one piece. And then next step is you got to take off all these little 8mm bolts here around the pump. So I did put a drain pan down because this is going to leak some oil, guys. So let's go ahead and get this cover off, and then we can swap out our axle. Okay, so as you can see, it just came right off like that. You know, right now is a good time just to make sure all your bearings are running smooth. They all feel real smooth, they all feel real good. And the one we're looking for is actually this one here. So it's going to be the top gear. You grab your axle from the other side and you just kind of wiggle it out. So that whole thing slides out. You take it off. This is your long axle. You throw that one away, do whatever you want to do with it, keep it for spare. And you grab your short axle and you slide your short axle right on the same way. And you want to check the seal in there, make sure it's all good. And then you just slide it right back in. And it's as simple as that. Make sure it spins freely, and then you should be good to go. Put it all back together. So you just want to take off this old gasket, get a new gasket, put some silicone on there. Some guys just use silicone on this thing too, so you know, it's personal preference, but clean it all up. I got a new gasket. I'm going to put gasket and silicone, and then you just put it all back together. So I'll put you guys on another quick time lapse. We'll put it all back together, and then we keep on going with the mount and stuff. Okay, so hopefully you guys are not getting too blown out by the sun there, but this is one of my favorite parts here. You get your brand new hub. Like I said, I think I got this one from Dorby Works, and you slide that bad boy in there. Nice, the whole thing spins. So I did not buy a fancy lug nut because I'm just going to cover it anyways. So I'm just going to use this old dirty lug nut, run it in there, we will torque it just like that. And now, like I said, one of my favorite parts of the build. Probably gonna have to take the dipstick out. There it is, guys. Man, that is gonna look sweet. So check it out. I just remembered I don't have lug nuts, so I might just get some temp ones on there and get some lug nuts. But man, I went with the really low profile 130/70, and it looks like we got a ton of clearance, so we should be fine. Don't even have to shave the dipstick. So yeah, that's halfway through the build, guys. Heck yeah. So next step is we're gonna go ahead and slap our motor mount on here, and then we might start tearing the Ruckus apart if I have enough time today. So let's keep on going. Okay, so I ended up wrapping it up that day. We got the Gy6 with the fatty wheel on it, and I put the motor mount on it just real quick, just one bolt. But we're gonna go ahead and start with the Ruckus. I'm gonna be over here. It's a little bit of shade and it is hot today. I think it's 80 degrees. So I'm not gonna spend much time on tearing apart this thing. I'm just gonna take off the battery box, take off the floorboard, take the seat off, and rip the engine out. So I'm not gonna be using anything from the original Git motor. So I'm just gonna go ahead and tear it all apart. So there's a ton of videos on how to take these things apart. I mean, I'm sure you guys can find one if you search for one. But I'm just gonna put you guys on a quick time lapse, tear this thing all apart, and see if we can get our Gy6 mounted up at least by the end of the day. So let's get to it. So there she is, all stripped down to the bare frame. So we got our old Git over here. This one did have a 6-inch stretch kit on it. It's password JDM, and it had the shock extension as well. But this is going to be our new mount here. So I already kind of got it bolted on. We did go with the Mojo Customs. I heard it was a, well, not heard, I kind of read up on it, heard it was a pretty decent mount. So this is the one I went with, and I also went with it because I guess you get a 12.5-inch stretch using this longest bar here. So that's the one we're gonna do. We also have our shock extension here, and I think this is the little piece that goes bolted to the frame. So we had to do some prep to the frame. I think from what I've read, you got to get rid of this bracket and this one here, and I think there's one more or two more. I might just end up grinding all these off because I don't think I'm going to use any of them. But do your research. I'm just going to kind of wing it. I think it's just these two, and I think one of these over here, something like that. So I'll just bolt it on, see if it fits. If it doesn't, then I'll probably go do some research. But let's go ahead and see if we can get this thing bolted up. I got to find my low down shock somewhere. It's probably one of these boxes, but we'll look for that as well, and then we can get her bolted up, and hopefully we can have the engine in here by the end of the day. So also one more thing, I did take the complete Ruckus wire harness out. I am not going to use it. I know a lot of you guys are probably going to give me crap for this, but I'm just going to use the stock Gy6 harness. It's cheap, it's affordable, and if it breaks, I'm pretty good at electrical, so I don't mind fixing it. So I can usually diagnose these things within, you know, the half hour. So, you know, if something goes wrong with it, I can fix it easily. You know, for other people that want to go an easier, more expensive route, go ahead and buy yourself a nice wire harness, you know, from one of these reputable shops. But I'm going the cheap route today, and if it does give me a bunch of problems, I can always upgrade it later. I just want to get the thing running. So let's continue. I'm going to go ahead and start by putting the shock mount on and see if I think we have to drill these holes out as well. So I'm going to have to drill these nuts out, and that way we can get our T-bracket and our shock mount on. So let's get started on that. Okay, so first things first, looks like we're gonna have to slide this mount into here. Oh, it's pretty tight too. So, and it looks like it just goes right in like that, doesn't it? So might have to go in just a hair more. So once we get that thing pretty lined up, I'm just gonna go ahead and use the stock bolt this one had on here. This one had a different aftermarket bolt since we had our password JDM mount on there, but this thing is kind of tight, so I'm gonna see if I can run it in a little bit, and hopefully we don't cross thread anything. There we go. I'll just torque that down a little bit. Okay, and on to the next step. Okay, so the next step on our Ruckus build is we actually had to bolt this thing down here and here, but underneath this frame we actually have some nuts that are welded to the frame. So we're just gonna go ahead and take our stepper bit. We're gonna drill right through this thing. Right now, obviously the hole size is wrong as well. We gotta make it the same size as these plates. So it's pretty far down on the bit. I'm just gonna drill until hopefully one of those nuts falls off. And then once we get that all drilled out, if those nuts are still on there, what I'll do is I'll just take a chisel and knock them off from underneath. And then we're also gonna have to grind down these two tabs like I said earlier. So let's get started on that. Probably put you guys on a quick time lapse while I'm drilling and cutting all this stuff off, and we'll get back to you. Okay, so I'm gonna come back later and finish grinding these off and painting it. So I hit this for about 10 minutes with the flappy wall I had here. It just made a mess and it didn't go through it, so obviously I need to get a new one. But for now, we're just gonna put this on. I think this mount, the long side, goes towards your turn signal switch. So, oh, dropped it. But it's gonna go underneath the frame like that. And we're gonna put this on here. So don't forget your washers. We got that washer underneath. So it should look something like that. Obviously we got to grind down that last tab so that way this will fit flat on there, but I just, like I said earlier, just want to put it on there so that way we can get our Gy6 bolted in. Okay, so everything is just temporary right now, guys. We got this extended control arm here, whatever this is, with our mount on there, and it is in there just loosely. So you want this little bump, I guess, to be towards the scooter and down. And then I also have my lowered low boy mount shock on there just loosely as well right now. And we're gonna go ahead and try and slide it under the Ruckus right now, and then woo-wee, super excited, guys. So I went ahead and skipped a little bit ahead. I went and put the carburetor on the thing, and I just kind of temporarily bolted up my lowered seat frame. So I just wanted to kind of get a little sneak peek of what this thing is going to look like and check it out. So I am super excited with this. We got our 8-inch fatty back there with the Gy6 hub adapter. And then I just went ahead and bought these they're cheap blade lowered seat frames, and I don't know why I like this seat frame. It just looks nice. I'm gonna probably have to grind down this tab because it looks like it's hidden on the inside here. But other than that, this is a rear shot. So I did go ahead and contact Draw Sports because, as you can see, I think the center line is about right here on the Ruckus, and it's kind of lined up with this inner thread here, tread on the tire. So it is a little bit off-centered. I don't know if that's normal for the Mojo Customs mount, but I mean, I called them, they said that's normal, so I'm just gonna roll with it. But yeah, I mean, check it out. I'm gonna go ahead and probably get started on some of the wiring. So might highlight some parts on it, but like I said earlier, I am just gonna use the Gy6 harness. So it's kind of just custom, you know. You just got to cut the ends off, splice them to the Ruckus parts, and see what fits. You know, you got to figure out which turn signals go to what turn signal wires on the Gy6 harness. You got to figure out how to wire up your ignition. So it's kind of all custom, so there's not really a, you know, good how-to on that. And it's just kind of using the voltmeter and, you know, get going on it. So I'm going to start by doing all that, and then we'll get back to you once we get to it. Okay guys, so check it out. We got most of our wiring done for the engine. I went ahead and put a good thick wire for all the way to our battery. We wired up our starter solenoid and our rectifier over here. So, and I know you guys are probably gonna murder me for this, but I just use quick connects on most of it. So it's what I had handy, and this is all headlight wiring. So let's go ahead and give this thing a shot. Oh, and I ended up leaving my CDI box back here next to the engine just because these things almost always fail. So if I do need to replace it, it'll be quick and easy, just right under the frame or right under the seat. And you know, it makes it a lot easier. But let's go ahead and give this thing a shot. Let me set this up real quick here and we can hear this thing fire up. Oh, turn our key on. Woohoo! Heck yeah, guys. So she runs. So next step in the process is I'm just going to tear apart this front wheel, get my front disc brake all settled and situated, get my levers all fixed up. I'm going to probably still use the stock switches, that's why I hardwired them in. So I'm just going to probably cut off this mirror and cut off this brake handle. Same with this one here, cut this brake handle off, cut this little nub off, and then we're going to go ahead and put our aftermarket levers on there with our front disc conversion. So I still got to figure out all the wiring for the headlights and taillights and all that stuff too, but I mean, it looks like it's only, you know, maybe 6 or 7 more wires. So let's keep on going on this thing. Like I said, sorry I can't do more of a breakdown, but it's pretty simple. I mean, just wire up your CDI box, starter solenoid, and rectifier. That's pretty much all you need for these little engines to run, you know, as long as your carb's working good, and that's about it. So, and I went with the mechanical fuel pump. So we got the Mikuni little snowmobile fuel pump hooked up to a vacuum. That's your fuel in, that's your fuel out. So that's about it. Let's keep on going. I'm going to go ahead and tighten down everything on the motor mount, put some Loctite on everything, and then start my front disc conversion. Okay guys, so we got those brake levers all shaved and everything. You can see they're nice and somewhat smooth. Maybe later in life I can go back and polish them, but for right now that's good enough for me. I just want to get this thing on the road, running and driving, and then I'm probably going to tear this thing down again and paint it and do all the nice stuff to it. But here's a quick rundown of what everything else we have to do. So I'm going to start with these brake levers. So I did go with the Adeline adjustable whatever brake levers. This one has the brake switch in it with the master cylinder. So here's our other side. This one's just for the cable, and then we got our little master cylinder chrome, right? We did get the disc brake conversion with the Adeline, looks like 4-piston brake caliper. We got the little adapter for it. We have our braided line, and then we got our low down chrome shocks as well. So these are the ones I'm going to be running. Hopefully we can get it pretty close to the floor. I want it to be sitting pretty low. Looks like we got a bunch of hardware over there, and then we got our front wheel. So our front wheel has the front hub that we need to put on the wheel. So we're going to bolt this hub to that wheel, and then it looks like we got our disc brake adapter. So once we get that disc brake adapter bolted to this thing, let's put it on the wheel with our drum, with our disc brake, and let's get started on putting this thing back together. So I'm going to slap those shocks in there real quick, and probably those brake handles up on top, because that looks like it's the easiest thing to do. So let's go ahead and do that, put you guys on a quick time lapse, and then we'll get to the wheel. Okay, so we're going to move our direction over here a little bit, but I got the mount here, and it looks like the kit came with 2 short bolts and 2 long bolts. You can see they're just a hair different, but I'm assuming the longer bolts go on the caliper because the caliper is a little bit thicker. And then we got this thing here that just lines up like that. So we're gonna go ahead and put this on. I'm just gonna put all this on loosely right now, make sure everything fits, and then once everything fits in there, we'll go ahead and come back and tighten everything up with Loctite. So now we're just gonna super carefully put our front wheel on, and then I'm gonna assume that the shorter spacer goes on our exhaust side, and we'll see how well this wheel lines up. Just be super careful, try not to scratch nothing, try and get everything lined up. gonna have some trouble doing this, but we will get it in there. There we go. Spacer in. There we go. So got our wheel about halfway in. We're gonna stick our other spacer in this hub. I might have to pull it up this way. There you go. There you go. And it looks like we're off just a hair. We might have to put a couple washers in there. So wheel looks to be pretty centered where it's at. So, but as you can see, between our spacer and our hub, we got a little bit of space. So let's go ahead and figure out what's going on here. Okay, check it out. This thing is looking nice. So I ran into a couple problems with this thing here. Not very big problems, but first one is here. I don't know if you guys can quite see it. Right here on this outside of the spacer, I had to put a washer on each side. So there's one there, and there's also one right there next to that spacer. So I just put them on the outside, and that's just to keep the wheel centered. So it's pretty dang centered now, and it's tight, so that's where it's gonna sit. So everything else worked out pretty decent, except for now I have this brake caliper. As you can see here, I have this gigantic gap between my brake caliper and my mounting bracket. So I had to get some spacers. I found this thing laying around in the shop, and that's almost just about the right size. It looks like it has to be a little bit skinnier, because once I put that in there, it kind of stops the wheel. So that's rubbing a little bit. The goal is to get this crack here in your brake caliper in the middle of your brake rotor. So it's kind of hard to show on camera, but as you can see, maybe we tighten this little bolt a little bit less, the wheel spins freely right there. So if I put this little washer in there, I had to loosen this a little bit, and then that's too much, and that actually stops the wheel. So it's not really too bad, but I can tell it is dragging a little bit. So it has to be just a hair skinnier than this washer here, and I got to put one on the top and one on the bottom. So, and then I also got to go get some longer bolts. So I'm gonna go to the hardware store real quick, get some longer bolts, get some of these, and while I'm at it, I'm probably gonna get some shiny bolts for my wheel, because these look ugly. But let's go and get all that stuff, and then hopefully we can come back and finish this thing up. Okay, check it out. We got our front disc brake on there, and we got it all piped up and bled. So I'm going to tell you guys right now, this was a pain. What I ended up doing was loosening up the rotor, taking the caliper off. I shoved a screwdriver between the brake pads, and I was able to open up this back bleeder valve. So once I had the caliper off, so pretty much kind of just bench bled it, I guess, if you want to call it. So, but she does have good brakes now. I mean, you can see we got about half, you know, and it gets pretty dang hard right there. So, and then we also just used our stock brake cable from the Gy6 to the rear. So we got it, we got our rear brakes hooked up as well. And don't kill me for this, guys. Like I mentioned earlier, I did just use all the Gy6 wire harness and adapted it to my Ruckus stock controls. So everything should work now. Low beam, high beam, turn signals. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. So I'm gonna go ahead and fire this thing up. I do have the jump box on it. The battery's dead. So let's go ahead and try this out. Oh, she's already got juice. So we got power, flip our ignition switch on, and here she goes, guys. Yeah, baby. Fired right up. Okay, so you guys heard it. So she runs actually pretty dang great. So there's just a couple other little things. Obviously I got the box sitting over here. If you guys know what that is, it is the Yoshimura pipe. I went ahead and got one for it, so I'm just gonna slap that bad boy on, and I think that's the last thing I can do on this. Then we can take it for a test drive. So looks like I'm missing a couple bolts here on my front hub. I just got to get a couple more bolts, but other than that, I mean, she looks like it's gonna be good and easy. So let's slap this Yoshimura pipe on there, It's not too difficult. I think it comes with the bracket. I'm hoping it all lines up. A lot of people say they never do. I still do have to order a fan shroud. Obviously I broke that one somewhere along the way and lost it, so I will have to order a new one. I think it'll be okay to ride for right now. It looks like it's pushing air into that cylinder head. Okay guys, check it out. I love the way this thing looks, man. So let's go ahead and give it a fire up and see, you know, see how she's gonna run. Woo, listen to that rumble. Oh, that sounds good. Love that. Oh yeah, that sounds good, guys. A lot quieter than open a header. Oh yeah. Well, let's go take her for a little test drive. Okay guys, so I got everything on here. Let's go ahead and take this thing for a test drive. Oh, turn our ignition on. Let's go. Okay, check this thing out, guys. I did end up putting it all back together, and I took it on a test drive, and the thing runs amazing. So I've actually been riding this thing for the last 3 days, actually 4 days now, and it's perfect. I mean, I used it as a daily for the last 4 days. It fired it right up every time. I did put the battery on a charger. We put the battery box all together, and it seems to be running all great, guys. Here, let's just give it a quick fire so you guys can see. So just put our ignition switch on and run, and fires right up. So, and that is that I just got here from about a 20-minute drive. So my house is about 20 minutes out. Let me go to turn the thing off. So like I was saying, my house is about 20 minutes out from my shop. So this thing will be a perfect daily for me. So that's what I wanted to build it for. I wanted to get it done. I wanted to have something to ride during the summer. Just a couple things that I learned doing this swap. I mean, handlebars, everything's pretty easy. I mean, like I said, I just still use the original switches, use the original Gy6 harness. It's not a big deal. A lot of people are gonna bash it because they say it's junk harness, but it's actually only junk really where it connects to the headlights. So if you cut all those headlight pieces off, because they got like 1,000 grounds soldered to one little wire, so if you make separate grounds, it actually is pretty reliable. But then it is a lot of work. You got to take it all apart and do it all yourself. Front disc conversion, you're gonna need washers for everything. So washers on the hub, washers on the axle, washers on the brake caliper. You're gonna need washers for everything, guys. I mean, back here on the shock, you're gonna need washers in between here. You're gonna need washer back here. I mean, it's just washers everywhere. So when you buy these parts, I would recommend whatever bolt size you get, buy washers with it, probably, you know, 4 or 5 of them for each bolt you get. So obviously she's still not done. I'm gonna strip it probably down at the end of summer. I want to ride it this summer just to make sure it's reliable. By the end of summer I'm gonna strip it down, paint it, and that might be another video, guys. But for right now, I mean, I think the Ruck is done. So she's lovely. I think it's cool the way it looks for right now. She's obviously not a showpiece yet, but we will get there. So yeah, guys, just a fun little project. Sorry I haven't posted for a while. I wanted to give a big shout out to all my subscribers. Thank you. We are finally at 1,000. So if you guys like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, you know, do all that good stuff. It really helps the channel. But yeah, check out the Ruck, and remember, stay up, hustle hard.